All right, we just had a big weekend for NFL football. We have the 49ers beating the Lions in a great comeback. We got my partner Joe's team, the Kansas City Chiefs. Welcome to the Chiefs dynasty, possibly. Let's go ahead and hit that theme music.
What's up, y'all? Let's go. Let's go. And they doubted it.
Kansas City Chiefs proving a lot of people wrong, proving some doubters wrong, my man. I give
I'm
it up
gonna
to them. I give
I'm
it
gonna
up
be
to them.
real, man. I'm gonna be real. There was some times this season that I just didn't think it was our year, but I said it a couple weeks ago, man, on the show. I told you, how depending on how we looked against the Dolphins, that this matchup against the Ravens, that we could potentially give Lamar some issues, and that proved to be true.
No, most definitely. Hats off to the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't have any hatred in my bones toward the Kansas City Chiefs or anything to that effect with it. Um, Patrick Mahomes has jumped into my top two quarterbacks of all time with his early resume. I will say that he is in my top two quarterbacks of all time now. He's still behind Brady, in my opinion,
Yeah,
but my top two quarterback list was a little bit different. I had Elway as my number two quarterback of all time. Mahomes is
Elway.
past Elway. Yes, Elway was always my number two quarterback of all time because I always felt that if you could build a quarterback in a lab, John Elway was a quarterback you would build. Plus, how successful he was as an NFL quarterback, so that's why he was always my number two. But Mahomes has supplanted John Elway, in my opinion, with this performance this year.
I'm not gonna lie. I just kind of assumed your number two was Joe Montana.
No, Montana's top five for me, but Elway was always my number two at the moment. Elway was my number one quarterback of all time until Brady came along and did all that. But I give it up to Mahomes, man. Mahomes is he's clutch. I don't even know what else to say about the guy. The guy is clutch. The guy just has a demeanor about him when he's on the field, carries himself well, leads the team well, makes the plays when he has to make the plays, and he has great play caller in Andy Reid. Travis Kelsey is out there making clutch catches when you need him to make it and everything else. And I mean, I don't know what else to say about the Kansas City Chiefs. And this is supposed to be a down year for him, man. This is supposed to be a down year. So I don't even know what else to say about this squad.
Bingo, bingo. I can tell you what to say. The rest of the AFC screwed for a while because if this was the down year, I mean, that being said, I'm always a little just cautious to jump in there and say that kind of stuff like I just said because you never know when it's going to end and you're never going to see another Super Bowl again for another 30 years or whatever, man. Like it's really really hard
You
to
don't
get
you,
back there.
you don't have to rub in the 30 years, man. You ain't got to
No,
rub in the
I
30
was
years.
thinking about us. Honestly,
I
I was
know.
thinking about us.
As a Cowboy fan, man, you ain't got to rub in the 30 years though.
yeah,
That's all
yeah,
I'm saying.
that wasn't
That's all
directed
I'm
at
saying.
you guys. I thought about that once it came out of my mouth. I was like, he's gonna think I'm talking about the. I'm not. I'm not. I was actually talking about us, but yeah, man, you always know it's going to come to an end someday, but it doesn't look like it's coming to an end anytime soon for the Kansas City Chiefs.
No,
And like you got a chance. I mean, we can talk about that later on, but you got a chance this offseason to actually bring a better roster to the field next year. Um, with all that young talent and everything, like this was the AFC's chance. This was their chance, and they screwed it up. And I
yeah,
saw a lot of talk to that effect on sports media out there today and
no,
yesterday.
it definitely felt that way. I will say that it definitely felt that way. But I'd like to get your early thoughts on the game. You're a Chiefs fan. I'm sure you were intensely into it. What were your thoughts when that game started and especially how the first quarter went? What were your
You,
thoughts on that?
you were actually like the only person I was really communicating back and forth with during the game. I don't normally communicate with anybody in a big game. Uh, but you know what? I told you it started out the way it started out on offense, especially. It felt dominant to me. I know early on you said it didn't feel dominant on offense, and that Baltimore defense was giving them trouble. I felt those first two drives were absolutely dominant. I felt like they were doing whatever they wanted to on those guys. They went down the field, and there was not much answers. And it looked like that game might get away from Baltimore, but all due credit to the Baltimore Ravens and that fantastic defense that they have, because they adjusted and they adjusted quickly. They didn't wait to halftime to adjust. They adjusted quickly. They came down on the screens and the short stuff and kind of changed the way we were going down the field. They were giving us that short stuff initially. We were taking it, which I was really proud of. I really thought the patience that both in play calling and at the quarterback position was shown brilliantly. They didn't get baited into not being patient. They had a couple drives that were super long. I mean, Mahomes went 10 or 11 straight completions to start the game. I know it's not big chunks and right down the field, but the reason I felt it was dominance because it was just absolute perfection. Like there was nothing. I think maybe one play was stopped by that awesome defense. So I felt really, really, really good after that second drive and thought, we might be in for a boat race here. And then the good coaching and the good players on the other side changed that and made it a really tough defensive battle of a game.
Most definitely. And the reason why I chimed back at you and said it wasn't dominating was because unlike the Buffalo Bills game, where you guys were moving the ball up and down the field and doing all that stuff, the thing the Baltimore Ravens were able to do was get you guys to a bunch of third downs, even force you to convert a fourth down. And that's what sucks. That's what sucks about playing defense sometimes, or makes it hard about playing defense, is you can dominate a team for let's say every four downs or every first down. You can dominate a team for two plays in a row. Stop them for 1 yard gain, stop them for a 2 yard gain. But then that third down play comes and it's all a complete reset and everything else. So you could technically, as a defense, outplay a team for basically 66% of the plays that are happening. But if you don't get them off the field on third down or off the field on fourth down, the offense gets to keep moving and it feels more like a successful drive. And that was why those first two drives came off to me where, yes, the Chiefs were executing perfectly. They were doing everything right. But to me, it took them to execute perfectly to move the ball on the Ravens. And that's why I gave the Ravens defense. And it didn't feel like it was dominating to me to that
Yeah,
effect
no,
either.
I get that perspective. I do. And just to point out, you made a great point. You've made a great point a few times, sometimes off screen and sometimes on screen, that those first two drives as a defense are the toughest to stop. And that played out to be the truth for at least for the Ravens defense. Um, I would like to point out that we did talk about a potential fourth down and short. Um, so before we get to that, I would like to point out, yes, they missed the third down and short, but I felt like the play call was because they had already decided, hey, if we don't get it on this run, we're going for it on 4th and 2.
Mhm.
So I didn't feel like that was a panic situation by any means. I felt like the place where they were at on the field, they're like, hey, we got two shots at 2 yards to gain. Let's see if we can get it on the ground. They ran that run, and to the Ravens' credit, they stuffed that. They're good at that. Um, good job on them. And then we came back with sprint right option, which we
Which
had
you
talked
called,
about.
you just called it and said they were going to do that. Most
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah,
But yeah, no, I mentioned that the first two drives are always the toughest for the defense to stop. If you have, especially if you got a really good offensive coordinator like Andy Reid. And to me, it seems like the Chiefs' game plan is let's attack, let's get up early, let our defense do what our defense can do. And as the offensive coordinator is Baltimore, I thought me personally, I thought he panicked when the Chiefs scored on those first two drives, and I think he felt like he had to answer right away. That was
yeah,
my opinion on that. Um, the Chiefs went down, scored. I think the offensive coordinator in his head was like, okay, I got to make sure we're keeping pace because this is Mahomes, this is the Chiefs. And he got so caught up in that, I don't think he really noticed that his defense actually settled in and was able to
hmm
make some stops. And he could have stayed with the way Baltimore wins games, which is pound the rock, grind, make big plays when you need to do it. But he went away from that and put Lamar in some bad spots. I thought Lamar played an average game. I don't know what your thoughts are on that. I remember off screen when Lamar broke that long run, I said he didn't look right on that run. Not
you
saying he
did.
was hurt. he didn't look right after he broke that run because that's usually a run where he's pulling away from the
Yeah,
guys on that.
yeah.
So I don't
Couple
know what your
couple
thoughts were
thoughts.
on that.
Yeah, a couple thoughts on that particular run that you're talking about. Number one, he didn't look quite right, but that our defense is super fast too. So um, you can't just automatically pull away from those guys. So a little bit of credit both sides there. But also just going back to that 4th and 2 play, and you talk about dominance. Uh, they hear, hopefully, whoever watches this might be thinking, hey, well, if Joe can call that play days before it even happened, why weren't the Ravens ready for it? The answer is they were absolutely ready for it on that sprint right option. Um, CEH, Clyde Edwards-Helaire was actually the number one read on that. And if you watch him, he runs a little flat route, and the linebacker or the safety, whoever it was there, came up and absolutely jammed the crap out of him, and he was
Yes.
not able to release into the flats. So that play should have been maybe dead from the beginning, but somehow Mahomes actually makes it to his third read, which is Kelsey back across the defense. And it's like, what do you do? That's why I say dominance. It's like, hey man, you knew the play. We all knew the play. Anybody that watches film knew the play, and you still can't stop it. That's
No, that's what great players do. Is
yeah.
I shouldn't even say great players. I think there's a lot of great players in the league. That's what Hall of Fame players do. Those
Mm-hmm.
outstanding players is you can guard everything perfectly, and they still find a way to make a play to get the team keep going down the field with that.
Yeah.
Lamar had one great play on the offensive side where he broke the sack, scrambled, and that was one of the plays where I talked about where you can defend everything perfectly with Lamar, and he
Yep.
will somehow make a play and make your defense pay. That was the
100%.
type of play that I was talking about with him. But the credit to the Chiefs defense, most underrated defense. I don't think they were ever talked about as being the number one defense in the league or one of the top defenses in the league this year, even though
For a couple of
statistically they
weeks,
were.
for a
Yeah.
couple of weeks they were, and it was like midpoint of the season. But really, all year they were one of the best, and in my personal opinion, they are the best defense, and they showed that Sunday.
No, I
And all credit to the Ravens. I'm not knocking them, man. They had a historic defense too, but there was two historic defenses on that field. I think we saw that. You don't win that game without that historic defense. And L'Jarius Sneed, that play to knock the ball out. I mean, does it get any more clutch than that play?
it doesn't get any more clutch, but that's why they say don't dive at the goal line unless it's fourth down, man. That's why they say it over and
Belichick
over.
was Belichick was
Uh,
sitting on his couch like, that's
yeah,
why I tell him not to do that.
yeah. And it's crazy that it happened 2 weeks in a row in
Yep.
a Chiefs game. Like, granted, it happened,
Mhm.
it worked against you guys last game,
Yep.
but it's crazy that happened 2 weeks in a row because you don't see it happen too often.
Yeah.
But that's why they say it. And
Well, and it's interesting to point out too that in both of those situations, you didn't need to stretch the ball out, man. It wasn't your last chance at the end zone. If it's your
yeah,
last chance, if it's fourth down and you need that touchdown and there's no getting it back, yeah, reach the ball out, try to score, all that kind of stuff, man. Or if you're just a special talent, we see Kelsey do it, we see Mahomes do it, we see those kind of guys do it. Lamar, I've seen do it.
mhm.
Those special kind of guys, I give them a little bit of leeway, but Zay isn't that guy yet. I mean, great rookie year, fantastic player. You're not that dude yet.
No.
And you reached it out in a point where you didn't need to, man. Just take that yardage and put your great offensive line up there and run the football 3 times, and you're
Yeah,
probably going to score a touchdown.
because that would have been a first down
Yep.
after his catch and everything else. I think he started pressing after he got called for the taunting penalty.
Yeah.
Um, and I think he kind of pressed a little bit in that moment because he knew he already cost his team yardage and a possible just 3 straight runs into the end zone. And I think he was pressing to make up for that mistake as well for what he caused. What's your feeling on taunting? Do you think that should be in the NFL or out of the NFL?
I think those are grown men, and it should be completely acceptable to taunt and do whatever you want.
Yeah.
But that's not the rule. The rule is you can't do that, and you got to know the rules the way they stand, which is kind of brings me into a segue of something I wanted to talk about is rules and complaining about referees and all that stuff. It gets out of control at times, man. Like
Mhm.
the Baltimore Ravens, I'm sure, are upset about some of the calls. And let's be real, they've missed an absolute positive pass interference, illegal contact, whatever you want to call it, holding that they should have called that would have probably made a difference for them, but they still lose the game even if they call it. Just to
Most
be
definitely.
and then, some of the other, there was a lot of no calls on the Ravens too. That's the other thing I just kind of want to point out is there was some holding going on there that they didn't get called on both offensive line and defensive backs. I mean, the stuff happens, man. You can't sit there and point at a referee unless it's just absolutely egregious and it was the play that cost the game.
Mhm.
That's when I think it's appropriate to talk about a ref.
Yeah, I think ultimately it usually balances out for the most part during the games overall. The thing that sucks and the reason why it gets talked about is because it always seems to happen in a clutch play or what's redeemed to be a clutch play just because it's toward the end of the game or something to that effect with it, or when a team's desperate on a comeback. But overall, I think it usually ultimately balances itself out throughout a game. There were
I
a couple of games that were off, but that's
Yeah,
my
I
feeling
agree.
on that.
I don't think let me be clear. I don't think the officiating's been good this year. Like it's
Mhm.
been bad, but it's bad across the board for everybody. It's not like trust me, those referees have cost the Chiefs a few games. To be honest with you, but I mean, look at the MVS against the Packers. I don't know if
Yeah,
everybody remembers that. Like he got tackled on that play before the ball was there, and he catches that. We win that game. But
I
nobody
can't.
talks about that. It's always, oh, the Chiefs get all the refs. Like, come on,
So,
man.
so what you're telling me is you're not buying the conspiracy theories that the NFL wanted to make sure Taylor Swift was at the Super Bowl. Is what you're telling
No,
me?
no. So my argument to that is, so let me get this straight. Before and I'm not the first one to make this argument. I'm not going to take credit for it because lots of people have made this argument. So what you're telling me is they needed Taylor Swift to get ratings for the Super Bowl?
Hey, the Swifties, man. The
Get
Swift,
out of
the
here.
Swifties, man. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying, man. The
Oh
Swifties
Lord.
have increased attendance. Hey, Travis Kelsey has one of the top selling jerseys now. I
I
mean,
mean,
just it's no coincidence though. It's no coincidence with it.
is it helping? Is it helping things? Yeah, sure. Like, are they making good business decisions? Yeah. Are they showing Taylor Swift way too much? Yeah. Is it annoying? Yes, it's annoying for Chiefs fans as well. Um, but I don't know. Like, I don't spend my game worrying about the B-roll shots that they show in between plays. Like, I literally half the time during that in between period of time where they're showing the crowd and stuff, like I'm looking down at my phone half the time until the play comes up because
Yeah,
I'm here. Perry, man, I gave you nothing but credit, and your guys, I mean, they did a great job against us. But come on, man, come on. But anyway, yeah, like I'm not even looking at this B-roll stuff when they're showing Taylor Swift or big wide shots of the stadium. Like I couldn't care less, dude. I just get to the next play for me. But I've learned over time that I am not the average football fan. I am not the normal person that watches football a normal way. From my one of my best friends that lives out here at the lake, when I go watch football with him, I mean, I'm completely focused on the game. I'm completely focused. I'm trying to decipher what the defense is running, what the offense is running, what's the next move. And like his thing is, hey, you want some nachos and a beer? I mean, he's there for the social event, and it's
yeah.
not a social event for me.
No, I get it. I get it with that. Um, but yeah, it was a like I said, my it was hats off to the Chiefs. I thought Lamar Jackson, his performance wasn't up to his own self. I think he wanted to prove too much. He was a pocket quarterback, even though the, his history is he's always been pretty much a pocket quarterback that can run really fast. I just thought that game against the Chiefs, he needed to break the pocket a little bit quicker and put more pressure on that defense to stop him from running. I don't think he used his legs quite enough. I would have liked to seen old school Lamar, I guess is what they call it, where he's out there trying to break tackles, forcing linebackers to keep their eye on him to make sure he's not getting out there. But Spagnola, Spags, I'm not sure exactly how you pronounce his name, but we'll call him Spags. Did a great game plan with players keeping their eye on him, taking away anything deep, and forcing Lamar to be a patient quarterback and keeping him in the pocket. Forcing him to beat them from the pocket is what he did a really great job of with that. So, like I said, hats off to the Chiefs. I got no hatred for them. Usually, if you see a team win that much, there's always a little bit of hatred coming out. Um, the only
There's
way I
de-
can,
there's definitely Chiefs fatigue going on.
there definitely is. But to be perfectly honest, and we'll go into this game in a little bit, I think more of the fatigue with this Super Bowl is people don't really want to see the 49ers there. They want to see this rematch of the 49ers and Chiefs. It feels like we just watched it. And I know it's rosters have switched and changed and everything to that effect with it. But I honestly think it's more of a fatigue that people really wanted to see the Lions there over San Francisco, and I think that's more of a reason why people are saying they're not going to watch the Super Bowl and do that stuff. People are going to be there; they're going to watch. That's what people do on
They're
Super
gonna
Bowl
watch.
Sunday. There's nothing else to do on Super Bowl Sunday for the most part. So that's what people are going to do, man. That's what they're going to do.
You're gonna watch. Um, yeah, I get it. I do get that, and you know when the Patriots were going through their stuff, as much as I love success, and as much as I love watching people be great, there were certainly times where I got tired of watching the Patriots in the Super Bowl. So I totally get that. Totally understand where people are coming from. And if I wasn't a Chiefs fan, I have to admit that maybe a Ravens Lions Super Bowl might have been the thing that I was pulling for. So totally get where people are coming from on it. Just I'm embracing what I'm getting to see because whenever this run comes to an end, man, whenever Mahomes hangs it up, and all of this is over, the chances of us doing anything like this ever again is just next to nothing. So I got to enjoy every minute of this, man, because it's never gonna happen again, dude. Like,
I feel you. I know where you're coming from, and I hate to say it that way, but I know where you're coming from as far as that goes. And like I said, hats off, Chiefs Nation. Congratulations, you're back in the championship game once again. On the
I would,
burning of the
I would get
dynasty.
a lot of hate and upset people if I didn't just throw in "We are the Chiefs Kingdom," sir.
Chiefs Kingdom, sorry. Chiefs Kingdom. National anthem goes off, and the home of the Chiefs. We
Chiefs.
got it. Yeah, we got it.
Hey, I wanted to go back to something that you kind of brought up and we barely touched on there. I want to talk a little bit more about because there's so much to talk about. But I want to talk about Lamar, and as a Chiefs fan, I want to recognize Lamar. I want to stick up for Lamar a little bit because let's be honest. I said a couple 4 weeks ago that Spagnuolo is the guy that has the game plan that knows how to make Lamar look average. And yes, he made him look average. That doesn't mean he's average. He's still the MVP of this league. He's still a great quarterback. He can still pass from the pocket. He can still run with his legs. He can do it all, man. Lamar is still great. I'm not going to sit here and take anything away from Lamar. That defense is great, and it's a little frustrating to not have anybody give the Chiefs defense credit, even today, even after that game against the Ravens, where, and this is what's frustrating me. I need to get this off. Look, I had to sit here and listen to all these sports media people for a week tell us that the Chiefs didn't have a chance. The offense of the Ravens was too good. The defense of the Ravens was too good. There was no chance in hell. And then you come out and you beat them, and then it's, well, Lamar didn't play well. No, man, that defense is phenomenal. You can't have it both ways. You can't get to say, oh, well, they're just too good. And then when we go beat them, oh, well, they just must have messed up. No, no, it ain't like that, bro.
Hey,
So
people are looking to give reasons and stuff to that effect with it. I do think the Ravens offensive coordinator, when you have 31 first downs and you only run the ball on 6 of them technically throughout the game of your first down plays or in running situations, it's not a great game plan. And that's just kind of where I'll leave that with that. Like I said, I thought he went into
31? No, they had
well from
20,
the
20,
yeah
22.
22, but I'm just
Yeah.
talking about like their first down. I guess I should say more of their first down plays. that
Gotcha.
they got to run is what I'm talking
Yeah.
about more.
Right. Right.
Um, when you only run 6 true running plays out of that type of scenario, that it's like I said, I felt like he panicked once they went down and the Chiefs scored right off the bat on him. I felt like the offensive coordinator went into a panic mode and just said, I got to make sure Lamar's getting a chance to get out there, and we can't afford to run the ball and get stopped or anything to that effect with it. I mean, for your running backs to not carry the ball that much, it was a bad game plan, and I just think he panicked in that situation, and that's the hang up that I got with him.
Well, one thing I
Go
don't
ahead.
disagree with you. We talked about that this morning, which we've already started our winter workouts for high school football, which is awesome, and we had a bunch
Yep.
of boys show up this morning, which is great. And I get to hang out with my buddies and talk football, so that's awesome. I don't love waking up when I have to wake up to get in there, but that's the one drawback.
Yeah.
But we talked about this morning what you just said, right? That the offensive coordinator kind of panicked a little bit, and I think that's the Mahomes effect. And when you have those first two drives that went so well, how does that not sneak into your head? But I think something that you have to bring up to give this all context is that Baltimore went out and hired an offensive coordinator that was a pass first guy, and you can't ask him to change his colors. I mean, he's going to revert to what he's good at. He's going to revert to what he believes in. And they wanted a pass first guy to show that Lamar is a quote unquote real quarterback. Now, you know how I feel about Lamar. I could care less whether he gets yards running or passing. He's going to get you yards. And I have this
Yes.
argument all the time with people. Does it matter if your quarterback gets his yards through the air or through the ground? No, it doesn't. I don't care where they come from. I just want them. And he had over 300 yards in that game. So I don't know. Like,
It's I don't know. To me, like I said, it was just poorly planned game plan. The Chiefs defense played
yeah.
great, um, and just took advantage of what they needed to take advantage of. They made the plays when they had to make the plays. Baltimore got into the red zone or threatening in the red zone twice. I don't know what Lamar saw to throw that one pass to Likely in triple coverage. I know Likely put his hands up like he was going to be open, which is usually that universal sign, hey, I got one-on-one and I'm getting behind. But Lamar has to see there's 3 guys basically blanketing Likely on that play. And so that was probably the one really, really bad throw that he threw in that game. He did get a catch to himself, which was a remarkable play. When that happened, I was almost to a point where, all right, this is Baltimore's day. This is what they're going to do. They're going to make the plays.
Mhm.
This is what they're going to do today.
Yep.
Um, and then, like I said, Lamar had that scramble, and I was just that scramble and the deep pass. He played as well as he could. To me, it was just a below average game, but I think a lot of that was to the game plan. Basically, to me, they just got out coached on offense. The offensive team got out coached in that game against the Chiefs, and that's kind of what that came down to. Spagnolia blitzed what they said 44%,
It's almost
43% of the
at one point it
dropbacks.
was 50%. At one
Yeah.
point in the game, it was 50%. I think towards the end they kind of let off the blitz a little bit because the way the game was going and everything, so they didn't blitz as much. But yeah, I mean, it was 40 something percent blitz rate. For most of the game, it was 50% blitz rate. But let's talk about the numbers a little bit real quick. So time of possession, which we've said we both agree that doesn't tell a whole story.
No.
Uh, 37 minutes, 30 seconds for the Chiefs, 22 minutes, 30 seconds for the Ravens. Offensive plays, 73 for the Chiefs, 57 for the Ravens. That tells a little bit more of a story. Offensive yards, 319 for the Chiefs, 336 for the Ravens. They put up more yardage. 4.4 yards per play for the Chiefs, 5.9 for the Ravens. They were getting more yards, they were getting more chunks. They were moving the ball a little bit better for most of the game than the Chiefs. Part of that is a function of game plan, like you said. The Chiefs
Mhm.
were short passes, screens, and running the ball. And I'm glad they stuck with the run. I know some people probably got upset with the Chiefs continuing to hand the ball off to Isaiah Pacheco, even though it wasn't effective as it normally is. And I don't know, he was probably down around 3.8 or 4 yards a carry, which isn't ideal, but I mean, he still got enough in that touchdown to really make a difference. So penalty yards, 95 yards for the Ravens, 30 for the Chiefs. Do you want to talk about penalties? They had 8 penalties for the Ravens. You want to talk about that?
The Ravens had 8 penalties. Oh, with their undisciplined. The ones that were really costly were the ones right before the half.
Yep.
Um, I thought Travis Kelsey, and I had texted you about it, he was pushing the envelope, trying to get the Ravens to do that. And the Ravens ended up biting and kind of lost their temper a little bit with that. Because Kelsey was in people's face, started in the pregame where they're throwing Tucker's stuff to the side when he's doing this pregame kicking warm-ups and everything else to that effect with it. It started there. And Kelsey basically was, and credit to Kelsey, because he caught all 11 of his targets, if I remember correctly, didn't he, in that game?
They forced an incompletion, but he
Yeah.
caught almost everything,
But he was
including
to a
that one
point where,
diving catch. I mean, that was
yeah.
crazy.
But I mean, he was to a point where I think his mentality of that game was, if I get them off their game, because this is a good defense, and I think he respected their defense. But if I get them off their game where they're trying to retaliate or come against me, they're going to forget what they're supposed to be doing to actually win this game. And that was kind of what I felt like Kelsey's approach was. He drew a personal foul. Then there was the other one where they basically clotheslined Mahomes, which can't argue that personal foul either. Got him in the field goal range. Technically, that you can almost consider that pretty much the difference of the game right there was him getting that late field goal at the end of the half. Because if you think about it, if they don't get that personal foul, they actually probably stop the Chiefs inside the 20-yard line there and get the ball back with probably about a minute left to try to score before the half. It's something that's probably going to happen there in that scenario. But the Ravens came off a little undisciplined at times. But like I said, the refs, there was no other outstanding penalties that I felt like where I was like, oh, what are you guys doing? Some of it was just gameplay. Depends on if the refs want to call it or not. Things of that effect with it. But those personal fouls were the costly ones.
You've been around ball all your life, man. You've played, you've coached. What kind of player were you? Would you get in people's heads? Would you trash talk, or were you?
No. If I trash talk is when I got mad, if I was a trash talker. But I was never anyone that got in anyone's face or anything to that effect with it. You could almost, I played running back, I'd say, even when I played linebacker on defense, you could almost say I was like the Barry Sanders where I scored, handed the ball to the referee and stuff like that. Wasn't anything where I got in anyone's face. Looking back, I wish I would have, because in my head, that's how I am. But when I was on the field, I was never like that or anything to that effect with it. Just wasn't my game to do it that way. Basketball court, now, get me on the basketball court, it was a whole different story. I'll say that. Basketball was a whole different story as far as that goes. But football-wise, it was just, let's just play, let's just get through this, and let's get this done was my football mentality with it more.
I get you. I was a trash talker.
Were you?
Oh, yeah. Before I got it under control, I was kicked out of 3 games, I think.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. So definitely a trash talker. But after I got it under control, which I think Travis is the same way, I think he actually didn't get it under control until like his second or third year in the league, to be completely honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we all remember, I mean, that dude, do you remember him throwing the towel like a flag at the ref?
Oh, yeah, I remember that now. Yeah. I remember that.
Oh, man. Yeah, dude. Yeah, like he was not under control, but I think he has it under control now, and I think he uses it as a weapon like you're talking about. I think it was almost calculated to get into people and to get in their head and get them jaw jack and get them pushing and shoving. Because it's always the second guy. Coaches always tell you, it's, hey, don't retaliate. Don't retaliate. It's the second guy that gets the flag. Nobody ever listens, and then they want to bitch and complain when they get the flag. And it's like, dude, we told you. The second guy is always the guy.
It's always going to be the one. Always going to be the one. The guy that comes in late is always the one that they're going to see.
Don't act brand new, man. Don't act brand new. That's all I'll say about it. They got you. That was psychological warfare. They got you. Tucker, the kicker, I thought he was brilliant about what he said. He was like, I didn't think it was a big deal. That's the best thing to say, man.
Is
is.
Oh,
yeah, Mahomes asked me to move my helmet. I moved it. I thought it was out of the way, and I guess it wasn't.
It was more just funny because when you see it and the way they're not even being respectful with the way they're tossing it, and that's what made it funny. That's what made it funny.
Yes.
Yeah. Like Tucker's sitting there stretching.
Yeah.
And Kelsey just walks by, just throws all his balls out the way.
Kick the ball. Yeah, kick the ball, throws the stand, throws the helmet.
Mahomes kicks the kicking tee out of the way and everything else.
Yeah.
That's what just made it funny more than anything. Was just the way they treated it with that.
Yeah. I think some people get a little too wrapped around the axle with all the crap talking and all that stuff. I mean, you kind of alluded to it earlier when you asked me if I think taunting should be a part of the game. I don't think it's a big deal. I really don't. It, they're saying it anyway. Let's be real, because that's where I'm really coming from. Is if you could really actually hear, and I know they do the mic'd up stuff, but they cut a bunch of stuff out during that. Like, if you could really actually hear the stuff that's being said on the field, it's not good.
Well, okay, this is my true feeling on taunting, and I like what they said on ESPN Get Up this morning about taunting. If you're going to allow taunting, which is fine, don't do anything when that player gets his ass kicked some point in the game. That's all I'm saying with it. Because if you're going to allow it, as many rules as the defense can't do or can't do anything about or anything to that effect with it, a guy gets a 9-yard catch and a first down and he's all in the guy's face and everything else, making a big deal about it. Don't say nothing when that guy gets his retaliation against him. That's all. I mean, that's my biggest thing with taunting. To where if you're going to do it like that, then it's going to come back one way or another with it on you.
Yeah, I agree.
And not saying a cheap shot or anything like that, but you can't get upset when that person does retaliate eventually on that.
Oh
So,
yeah, they're going to,
yeah.
man. They're going
Yeah.
to. Which is all part of the game. I don't know if people really truly understand that. Like, it's all a function of the game. It's all a part of it. The trash talk that goes on, it's all. I don't think there's any real good trash talkers out there that don't consider that a part of their weaponry and a part of their game.
Oh, it definitely is. I mean,
Yeah.
it's part of it. It's to get that guy off his mental game, and he's thinking more about you than he is thinking about what he actually has to do. So
Yep.
it's definitely part of it and everything else.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to touch on with this game so we can dive into that 49ers and Lions?
Just not even necessarily about this game, but just like a general conversation about rules.
Mm-hmm.
I know some people had some issues with some of the roughing the passer calls and stuff like that. I think most of us would like to see the roughing the passer dialed down a little bit. It's a little crazy. But that one where, I mean, he slapped Mahomes in the face. Number one, it was an
Oh,
accident. It was an accident, but you're always going to get that flag.
yeah,
Always.
there was no doubt about that one. That was cut and dry. I had no issues with that one whatsoever.
Let's be
That,
clear. You can't even do that to an offensive lineman.
no,
You're getting called.
can't
So,
do it to anyone on the field.
yeah.
As a DB, you can't do it to a receiver. The only other issue I got with that is why can an offensive player stiff arm and almost grab a face mask? That's the only counter that I have to that is that
Yeah.
offensive players are kind of allowed to do that, where a defensive player, as soon as you touch it, flag, 15 yards, no
Were
matter
you
what on that
were
scenario.
you a stiff arm guy?
That was my move. I was a stiff arm and a dead leg guy.
Yeah.
That was my move. Stiff
Yeah.
arm and a dead leg.
Yeah.
Um,
I love the stiff arm.
yep.
If you can get that arm locked out and you can get some, dude, there's no way they're getting you.
Oh, it's impossible.
Yeah.
It's almost impossible to get you on that
Mhm.
scenario.
Yeah. So, and then the other one I guess I want to talk about with the rules and the roughing the passer there. Hey, he popped him in the head a little bit when he came in there or whatever. They're always going to throw that flag. I don't agree with the rule. I don't think it was that big of a deal. Like, it wasn't some huge head-to-head impact or anything like that. So I understand that people are frustrated, but the flag was
Mhm.
correct.
That was the Clowney one, correct?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't have any disagreement with that because he lowered his head right before he made the contact, and that's
Yep.
where I thought that's why they threw the flag and everything else. If he just extends his arms and does like a push, I don't think it's a big deal. But the fact that he lowered his head, and that's almost the first thing that makes contact with Mahomes, and it's tough because as a defensive player, it's almost I hate to say it's a natural instinct, but when you're about to collide, you kind of tense up anyway to
Yeah.
protect yourself. But I feel like Clowney knew what he was doing on that and probably was just hoping they weren't going to throw a flag, to be perfectly honest, and just wanted to do a punishment on Mahomes.
Well, and they said on the broadcast, their ball had kind of emphasized, "Hey, Mahomes thinks he's not going to get hit." I think
Yeah.
they overdid it. You know, like maybe there's a saying out there that I love about coaching: if you're not coaching it, you're allowing it. That was coached. You coached
I'm
it.
not going to, I don't want to say it was coach, but I think the team got together and said, this is what we're doing. And the coach was like, "Hey, as long as you don't kill us with penalties." I mean, that's
You know as well as I know that. I mean, especially in your position groups, when you get down into a position group and you're talking about the game plan that week, especially on defense.
mhm.
I know I did it last season with us. I can overemphasize something, and then they overdo what I've asked them to do, and it ends up hurting us that way. I did it with our D line last year. I was kind of trying to make sure that they didn't fly upfield too much, and then one game they just didn't fly upfield at all on the edges, specifically. Like we had defensive ends that like to fly upfield, and that's fantastic if you're rushing the passer, but it's not so great if you're trying to contain the run.
Yeah,
And then our guys, I emphasized me and Dak emphasized it all week, and then they end up kind of just sitting there, and it's like that's
yeah,
not that's not what I asked for, guys. You know what I mean?
yeah. No, I've
So
definitely
that's what I
seen that.
mean. That's what I mean by coached it. Like they overcoached that.
Yeah.
Hey, make Mahomes
Mhm.
feel you.
Yeah, and I can't say I as a defensive coordinator, I can't go back on my words because I've said if it's as long as it's not a cheap shot and the ref ends up calling a rough in the passer, I'll take it as long as you're being aggressive at that QB. I've
Yeah,
told my guys that before. As long as it's
yeah,
not a cheap shot and if you're finishing a play, make the quarterback feel you. So
yeah, yeah, for sure.
yeah,
So
I can't say I've never exactly coached that or anything.
yeah, so that's just the way that one goes. Congratulations. I have no issues with Ravens fans. I feel for them, man. That was the
Mhm.
first time they got to host an AFC Championship game, and didn't go the way they wanted. I have some close friends that are Ravens fans, and actually, he was one of my buddies that is a Ravens fan. He was the only other guy I was contacting during the game, surprisingly enough, because me and him can just kind of have a cool-headed conversation about a game like that. But uh, shout out to him, and man, that's a rough way to go out. It never ends the way you want it to unless you hold a Lombardi up. So
No, most definitely on that standpoint of it.
yeah. So on to the 49ers.
Yep, 49ers Lions. Lions blew a 17-point lead, let the 49ers come back into that game. Did you have any early thoughts about what you were watching or how that game unfolded or anything?
Yeah, my early thoughts were, damn, I got this one wrong. Because in the our coaches chat, we had kind of asked for, hey, what are you gonna have, or what do you got in this game? And I was the only one that picked the Niners. I think maybe Tuman did, but he might not even have gave his pick. But anyway, I was the only one that was like, yeah, Niners by 10. And the Lions came out with that end around, and JMO hit that 99 Madden speed and like went to the house immediately. And it was like, uh oh, right away. It was
Yeah, it was looking bad for the 49ers at the start of that game. Um, Lions came out great, came out aggressive, running the ball, pushing the 49ers around a little bit. I thought the Lions did a great job of using the aggressiveness of Bosa and Chase crashing down and getting around the outside on San Francisco early in that game. I thought they did a really great job on that. They showed it on the reverse that Williams ran. Um, and that was just to me a great start to the game plan that they did on that standpoint of it for that game, for especially for running the ball and attacking them. They jumped up early. The second half. Do you want to go into the fourth down calls real quick because there's a lot of different opinions on that situation.
Yeah, we might as well just get it out of the
All
way,
right.
man, because it was to me. I mean, you go ahead.
All
You
right.
go ahead. You started out.
So I know everyone says that's how Detroit has played. Dan Campbell is aggressive. That's how he's played all year long. There's a time and a place to always do that, in my opinion. Um, we always talk about time of possession. I'm talking about total possessions needed to catch you if you have a big lead. You're up 14, fourth and two from, I think it was roughly the 30-yard line, because I think if they would have kicked it, it would have been a 47-yard field goal, if I remember right, somewhere right around there.
Makeable kick.
It's a makeable kick.
Makeable kick for some high school kickers.
Yes. You kick the field goal to go up 3 possessions at that moment, more than the points. If you're up 10, if you're only up 10, I'm good with you going for it. Because to me, going up 13 doesn't really change the 49ers game plan or anything to that effect with it. But if you go from 14 to 17, It's a 3-possession game now. And let's just say the game unfolds exactly the same way everything does. IU catches a touchdown pass basically off the guy's face mask. You fumble on your next possession. Instead of the game being tied, you are still up 27-24 at that point if you kick the field goal with that. Because you got to sometimes allow for strange things to happen in a football game. The other issue I had with them going forward on the 4th and 2 was you weren't going to be guaranteed a touchdown anyway if you converted that 4th and 2.
Yep.
If it's 4th and 2 from the goal line, yeah, maybe okay. Maybe I'm going to go for that to go up 21. But to me, from where they were at, from the way the game was unfolding, because sometimes you got to take into account the flow of the game and everything else to that effect with it. That to me should have been a field goal attempt to go up 17. Now you're up 3 possessions. Now Kyle Shanahan, even in his head, when he's calling plays, he's like, dang, we're down 3 possessions. Maybe I can't just pound the ball with McCaffrey because the clock's going to be running. It changes a whole dynamic of different things in that scenario with it. So that's my feelings on it. Not saying Dan Campbell's a bad coach. Bad decision there, though, in my opinion. The second 4th down that they went for when they were down 3, I didn't have as big of an issue with that one. That would have been a 52-yard attempt, I want to say. But that one, to me, you're expecting your defense either way to have to make a stop. So even if they hold them to a field goal, you're still only down the 1 possession, which is what you would expect your defense to at least do in that point. So the second one I didn't have a huge issue with. But that first one that would have put them up 3 possessions, that's the one I had the big issue with. What are your thoughts with that?
Yeah, I actually want to start out by just kind of acknowledging somebody that I really am starting to look up to more and more. And that's Shannon Sharp and his podcast that he does. He's got a couple of them, but he does one with Ocho, and it's Nightcap.
Yep.
And they talked about this at length. I'll get back into why I feel so strongly about Shannon later, but he said it really well. Both of them said it really well, actually. Ocho, credit to Ocho. He's a funny guy, but sometimes he makes some good points. And, they said Campbell at this point is thinking like a player and not like a coach. And that is 100% accurate. When you're out there and you're lined up in that offense and you just got out of that play and you just felt like you just barely almost missed that converting that first down, you want to go. You want to go and you want to get it because you just know that you can get it. The problem is you can't always get it.
No.
And you need somebody to not make emotional decisions. And as a leader, you cannot make emotional decisions because emotional decisions are almost always wrong. They're almost always wrong. I mean, very, very rarely does an emotional decision work out for you. And it's usually more of a luck thing than it is, oh, that was a good decision thing. So I would just say somebody has to pull back a little bit. I know that's their identity. I know they love it. I know Lions fans are 100% behind it. But if you kick those 2 field goals, you win that game. That's
most definitely. Yeah, I'm not going to say you win the game because you never know how the game's going to fully unfold the rest of the way or
I get
anything
it.
to that effect with it.
I definitely get what you're saying with that. Yeah.
But I just when you get the chance to go up 3 possessions, to me that's just when you make that kick on it. Heck, if they were up 21 and decided to go for it, I would even get that because a field goal still only keeps you up 3 possessions at that point. Now, granted, they would need 3 2-point conversions, but I could even see still going for it with that because to me a field goal at that point doesn't even change the game flow that much at that point to go up 24 because it's still 3 possessions in that type of scenario. So
what I think we have an opportunity here. Like one of our earlier shows, we kind of had an opportunity for me to talk about mindset of play callers and stuff like that. But I want to give you that same opportunity because I think this is a great time to think about it. As a defensive play caller, do you kind of have the numbers 17 and 25 kind of burnt into your head?
Oh, most definitely. I can actually go to a game where we played Papio South this year, and we were down 17, I think it was at the moment, and we gave up a touchdown pass. Actually, I think we were down 15 at the moment, and we gave up a touchdown pass, and I could see the players coming off the field dejected a little bit because they're like, man, we're down by 23 now at that moment. And the thing I said to them was, or we were down 17, they went up 24. And the
Yep.
thing I said to him was, it is still a 3 possession game. Nothing changes because we gambled and gave up a touchdown pass on that situation.
Yep.
Nothing has changed as far as us making stops or anything to that effect with it. So yeah,
Hmm.
there's certain numbers that I keep in my mind as far as how I'm going to be more aggressive and things to that effect with it. Um, the other flip side of it is I don't think fans or people that think about analytics think about things such as these players are human with some of the things that are going to happen. You can't tell me as a player if you see your team fall down, let's say by 3 scores all of a sudden, if you're a defensive player, your mindset changes to, man, I got to make a play to get us back into this game a little bit more. So you might get a little bit more aggressive and do something that you probably wouldn't do in a normal situation where you're sticking to your game plan. Or maybe you're just overly aggressive in a pass rush and they run a draw underneath you or something like that because you're thinking you got to get to the quarterback and get a sack on a play. Just little things like that. And like I said, you as an offensive coordinator, even from the offensive game side, if you're down 17, doesn't your play calling in the second half change a little
Yep.
bit when you
Yep.
fall down 3 possessions as according to 2 possessions? So it's
Absolutely.
just it's those little things that I'm talking about with play the possessions, make sometimes the right call. If you think about how that second half opened, Shanahan didn't go for it when they got down there and they ended up kicking a field goal to go down 14. Why?
Mm.
Because there's still a lot of game time left. He knows now, okay, now it's a 2 possession game. I can still stick with my game plan. If he doesn't make it, momentum changes. Bosa even said in the press conference, that's when momentum changed. I believe momentum's a big thing just because, like I said, these players are emotional when they're playing the game. I believe momentum is a thing. There's people that don't believe in momentum. I believe momentum in games is a true thing because if you think about it, what happens right after that? The 49ers basically score 14 points in about a 2 minute span, 3 minute span in that game. Um,
It's an
so,
emotional game. Like,
yes,
can we
it's,
just acknowledge that it is an emotional football game? If you didn't see that from this weekend on both games, then you're
yes.
not watching.
So, I mean, that's why I understand analytics. I understand why people look at them. I don't think they can be used in all scenarios because they can't account for a player's emotions on the field and how the game is actually flowing
Nope.
with things to that effect with. And that's
We
why
haven't
I'm
we
not,
haven't
I don't
broke
believe,
that.
yeah,
Go ahead. Go
I
ahead.
don't,
Sorry.
no, I don't believe analytics should be used until the fourth quarter. That's just my opening. That's just my personal feelings on that. If you want to look at them from there, fine to see how the game breaks down, but I don't think they should really be used until the fourth quarter on most scenarios.
I'm not going to go that far with it to say that they should only be looked at in the fourth quarter or anything. I just look at analytics as a tool,
Mm-hmm.
something to inform your decisions, but you still have to make the decisions. A human still has to make the decisions, not a math equation. And I'm sorry, it's a human game. If we
Yes.
start playing it with robots, then maybe we'll do math equations then, you know? And I don't want to discount math because football is math. Like football is math everywhere you look. So I'm not saying it's not some big dummies game. It never really has been, but especially now in the modern age of football, you got to be highly intelligent, and math is a big part of the game. But it cannot dominate your decisions. It can't. You have to
No.
be aware in the scenario. Human emotions are a part of the game. They're a huge part of the games, whether you want to admit it or not. I'll tell you, and you can probably agree and co-sign on this. I think you will. When you're down, and I understand that high school the clock is shorter, but it doesn't matter whether you're in college or you're in the NFL and you got a 15-minute clock. Those quarters just go away so fast.
Yes.
Oh my God, when you're down there on the field and you're making decisions and you're actively a part of a game and you're doing stuff to try to make this game go your way, the clock just runs so fast it's unbelievable.
No,
Uh, uh,
most definitely.
I, like that's an emotional thing, and especially as you kind of alluded to, and as an offensive play caller guy, man, it is really hard when you get down by 17 to say, okay, I can still stick to my play call sheet. I can still stick to my game plan. I can still run the football. Even though you absolutely can still run the football, you feel like you can't.
Exactly. Because you start feeling like all that time's crunching. But like I said, a 2-possession game in the third quarter, you're still in your game plan. You're still in your wheelhouse. You're still, hey, okay, it's cool that McCaffrey only got 4 yards on that play. I can
Yep.
still come back with another run here a little bit later on. You can still operate because you know there's time to still do those operations and things to that effect with it. Um,
Would you agree with this? Would you agree that even though as an offensive coordinator, I'm sitting on the other side of the field from you, I'm looking down at my sheet and I'm feeling, gosh, I can't call this run right now. I can't call this run. Often that's the best time to call the damn run.
no, I definitely believe that. Um, no, I do believe that. I believe in a 2-minute offense. There's always time for to do a nice little run in there, especially in a
Yeah.
tie game scenario, depending on scenario, time, and things to that effect with it. I
Yep.
always believe you could sneak one of those runs in there, or
Yep.
third down and 5. I'm not against running the ball on 3rd down and 5, just because
Yep.
the way the NFL is now, everyone's thinking a sprint rollout or some kind of pass situation. That's what everyone's thinking. So I'm even good with doing runs on 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6 on occasion, just trying to sneak them in there. Detroit was actually known for doing that.
I was
That was
just
one
going
of
to
the
say
things
that.
Detroit was actually really good at, was 3rd down and 6, busting out a run.
Yep. I was
But the
just going to say
second
that.
half, second half they kind of went away from that. Um, but I thought Detroit played a great game, other than that third quarter and that little bit of time, that stretch, and that's why I truly believe momentum is a true thing. And to me, if he kicks that field goal, and if it's made, it's not a guaranteed make. To me, Detroit wins that game just with that one made field goal, because I think the game unfolds a little bit differently for San Francisco in that scenario. What were your feelings on Purdy watching that game?
That was the game I needed to see from Brock Purdy. That was the one I needed to see from him to sign off on him. And all the 49ers fans have been clamoring that he's not getting his respect and all that. I've been telling my buddy Jay for a while, he's a huge 49ers fan. And I really like the 49ers as a team and the way they're built and everything. The roster construction is fantastic. But I've been telling him, hey, slow down. Slow down. This is his first year, his first full year. Yeah, I know he played great last year. Didn't play a full year. Got hurt. Like, we got to see it, right? Like, we got to see it for one full season. And what a way for him to cap that off in an NFC championship game, to come up big, and to play fantastic. So I'm ready to call him a top 10 quarterback. What I'm not ready to call him is an MVP. I'm not ready to call him a top 3 quarterback. I'm not ready to call him a first tier quarterback. He's a second tier quarterback. And that's not an insult. It's not anything. He's a young guy. He's got time to
Yeah.
learn. He's got time to become that. And I think he probably will become that. But he's just not that yet. And I understand where the 49ers fan base is coming from. They're so hungry, man. They're hungry for a quarterback. They've been trying to find their guy. Everyone they put up there isn't the guy. Um, right? Lance, I mean, Trey Lance ends up with the Cowboys. And,
Hey,
they gave, they gave up a farm for him. I mean, what did they give up? 3 first-round picks or something crazy like that?
yeah, something like that to move up to get Trey Lance. It was,
I totally understand their hunger and their desire for Brock to be that guy, and it's looking like he is that guy. But let's wait to crown him, because my other argument is this. Um, if you put Josh Allen on the 49ers roster, is it scarier?
I truly don't know. I think the 49ers offense is already scary enough as it is with Purdy there. Um, the
Are you
question that
serious?
yes, that's, you gotta remember though, I'm a Cowboys fan. I've watched them roll through my Cowboys 3 years in a row,
Yeah.
basically. So you gotta understand, I'm kind of from that standpoint with it. Um,
Justin Herbert. When you put Justin Herbert on the team, is it scarier?
okay, see, when I look at Purdy, and I'm
Mhm.
not ready to put Purdy ahead of Herbert or anybody to that effect with it. I'm not ready to put him at that level. But Purdy does a great job of standing there and taking a shot to the chest and still delivering a ball downfield,
Absolutely.
which is what I don't know is, and I'm not saying Josh Allen won't stand in the pocket, but if Josh Allen sees that same rush, is he going to sprint out and then it's going to come down to his legs? is what I'm saying on that type
I'm
of
thinking
scenario.
more along the lines of that offense and the way it's designed. And you think, let's go back to your number 2 or number 3 quarterback of all time, John Elway,
Mhm.
basically running an older version of that same offense, and them running that wide zone and bootlegging off of that. And John had some wheels, but he's not Josh
Yes.
Allen.
No. But
That's scary.
I
I'm just
guess
saying.
to me, a lot of quarterbacking comes down to more decision making than their athletic ability, and
Mm,
that's where I'm curious on where they would be at if they were in that offense. Would
yeah.
be their decision making. The one thing I kind of take away from that offense, because the Green Bay Packers kind of run a version of that offense as well,
Mm,
is Aaron Rodgers basically said a nutless monkey can run that offense because everything is already told where you're supposed to go with the ball. That
yep.
was Aaron Rodgers' take on the offense that they're running.
Yep.
So that's why I say it comes down to decision making. Um,
Well, let
with the
me let me ask
49,
you this.
okay.
Let me flip the question. If you put Brock Purdy on the Chargers, are the Chargers still the Chargers?
Yeah, I mean, they, they just are. That's a
That's
tough
my
question
point.
to say.
That's my
Okay.
point.
Now, if you want to ask me, do you put Aaron Rodgers in this 49ers offense with these weapons? Now we're talking.
I get it.
If you're
And
telling me that,
you, whatever
yeah,
guy you have in your mind, right? And I'm just saying now, do I take Brock Purdy and I put him at the Jets, or do I take him and put him on the Chargers, or do I take him and put him on the Jaguars, or one of these other teams that maybe aren't performing the way that we think they should? Does Brock Purdy change that team? And I think, unfortunately, right now, I'm not dogging on Purdy. I love Purdy. I think he's done great. I just don't think he's that kind of quarterback yet.
no,
However, I want to give him his flowers and his respect. He is a top 10 quarterback, but not all top 10 quarterbacks change a team. And I would point to Kirk Cousins, who I think is probably a top 10 quarterback. Um, he's not changing teams either.
no. But I guess the way I look at the 49ers offense is Shanahan has been successful with that offense with different quarterbacks. I mean, we
Yeah,
can't deny that. He's had different quarterbacks in there. And the reason why I say it comes down to decision making is because the 49ers team responds differently with Purdy in there because they know Purdy is going to hold the ball and
yep,
go to the biggest threat option instead of the quick check down option in that offense.
yeah.
And that's what I think the biggest difference is with Purdy running that offense. And that's why I say a lot of quarterbacking comes down to decision making and how you just handle the pressure and things to that effect with it. Not that other quarterbacks aren't more talented than Purdy, because I think they are. There's a lot more just talented quarterbacks than Purdy, but his decision making and when he makes the decisions is what's key to making that offense top notch. And I think that's what the team feeds off of. That's why the whole team backs him up in a way they didn't back up Garoppolo when he was there with Jimmy. And Jimmy G got him to a Super Bowl, and they were quick and
She is
ready to get rid of
trash.
that guy. I'm just saying, but they were quick and ready to get rid of that guy. They didn't support that guy that same way or anything to that effect
That
with.
I agree with you 100%. Like I don't want to come off as the guy that's not wanting to give him his credit because I've been a Brock Purdy supporter, and my buddy Jay would, if he was on the show, he'd tell you that I've been one of the first ones to say no, that dude deserves credit. He absolutely deserves credit. I just want to temper it, and I'm not ready to crown
Yeah.
him. You know, and that doesn't mean I hate him or that I think I'm so glad that you brought the way he stands in the pocket up because he is phenomenal at standing in the pocket.
Yes.
Granted, maybe he needs to learn when not to stand in the pocket too long because that pick was 100% because he stood there and took a shot in the face and threw a pick. Probably needed to just take the sack there, but
Yeah.
that's a learned thing. He's a smart guy. He's gonna pick it up. He's got a lot to learn.
But
Um,
like I compare him to a guy. Let's compare him to Jared Goff,
hmm,
where you saw my messages when we were chatting about it. Just get Goff off his spot. Just get pressure on Goff, and he's not nowhere near the same quarterback.
nowhere
So
near it.
that's my difference. Is like I think Goff is probably more top tier talented
Yeah,
than Purdy is. Has better
Goff
arms, stands there, and
has a
things like
laser
that.
rocket arm.
Yeah, if you give him the perfect pocket, and you telling me if you gave Purdy the perfect pocket and Goff the perfect pocket, Goff would probably make the better throws, in my opinion. But when the pressure comes, I would definitely trust Purdy over Goff to make the plays and things of that effect with it, or decision
Yep.
making with that.
And to
Um,
be clear, like Purdy is not new on the scene for me. I watched him at Iowa State. I'm a K State
yeah,
fan. I watched him at Iowa State when he was starter there and liked him there, and always thought that he was a guy that had a little something. And it's not like I was screaming up and down for anybody to draft him or anything. I don't want to make it sound like that, but I always thought the guy could play. So I've always been a fan of his. I like him.
I mean, he got Iowa State to a bowl game, got Iowa State respectable
Yep.
that when he was there. So I
Yep.
mean, he did a great job at Iowa State, and that's not being from this part of the country. We know Iowa State's not usually in that realm consistently or anything to that effect with it.
That coaching
Um,
staff, though, man, did you get a chance to meet Matt Campbell and all that last year when
no,
we went? Did you not get to meet
no,
him? Dang,
no, I did not.
that was a good one. Like I really like him. I really like his whole staff.
Mhm.
I wish you could have been there to hear his defensive coordinator talk because that dude was smart. He had me believing, dude. He had me believing, and I'm not really big on that 3-3-5 that they run, but he had me believing in that thing, and I could see the way they were designing things, the way they run that a certain way is it's not like what you think, it's not like what you expect,
Mhm.
and they do some cool stuff there. So that coaching staff in Iowa State kind of off topic, but
Yeah.
I think they're making Iowa State something.
Mhm. The thing I'm curious about when we talk about Purdy, but to me, CMC to me, he is the MVP of the league in my personal opinion. It's really not Lamar. Lamar's going to probably win that just because of that game where they went head to head.
Yep.
I think it was sealed there. But to me, McCaffrey probably should be the MVP of the league for the what he does for that San Francisco offense. And to me, he's the key point of that offense, along with Debo and everything else. Um, but I'm going to be looking forward to this Super Bowl matchup, and we're going to be doing a breakdown, both of us, for how we think these teams should attack each other and everything else. So I'm looking forward to getting that done as well
Yeah.
with you.
I just want to. Yeah, I don't want to piggyback there.
Yeah.
That's an Air Force word. Ew. For those of you that don't know, I'm retired military. But anyway, yeah, piggyback on what you said there with CMC, dude. 100% deserves to be the MVP. I hope that they do it. I don't know. Is the votes already in? That's my question.
I believe so. I believe the votes are done because they already announced the finalists. The finalists are Lamar, CMC, and Dak. Those are the three finalists for the
Okay.
MVP. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm pretty sure the voting's already done.
I was gonna say, if the voting's not already done, you can tell them to only take the regular season into account, but there's no way that you don't cheat a little that on that
Yeah.
system, right? Like, so that's why I think probably the votes are already in and all that kind of stuff, and they were just waiting to announce. But yeah, CMC he deserves it, man. And let's be honest, it's been a quarterback award, and that's lame. It's the most valuable player. The quarterback is not always the most valuable player. Not always.
No, not always. Um, I think I guess their separation of it is, I think they should just do a quarterback award and then do an offensive player of the year award would probably be more fitting to it than calling it an MVP because there's some defensive players that could definitely qualify to be an MVP in
Mm-hmm.
this league and everything else, and they don't take them into account or anything to that effect with it. So I know they got their own defensive MVP award, but for league MVP, I don't know. League MVP, offensive player of the year, it's kind of the same thing, but the offensive player of the year is almost more for just a regular position player, I guess. And that's
Yeah.
kind of how they
Yeah.
do it. Wait, that's the way it's turning out to be anyway, I should say.
I hate that. Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, we need to fix that somehow for the league because there's guys that make such an impact on their team, and Christian is definitely that guy. That's not the same team. If God forbid Christian McCaffrey, and I'm not wishing this on anybody, if he got hurt or something in practice coming up to the Super Bowl, it's not the same game. I don't want that. I want to play
I
them
know.
full strength, but it's just not the same game if he's not on the field.
No, it's not. It's definitely not. Same with Debo. I'm hoping Debo's healthy. I'm hoping health for both teams. I know the Chiefs lost. I can't pronounce
I mean,
that guy's name. A
yeah,
Aminu. They
yeah,
lost him to you said a torn ACL.
yeah, torn ACL.
Yeah.
He
So
was
he's
big
going to
for
be
us.
out.
That has long-reaching effects, actually, because when you tear your ACL in the AFC Championship game, that's certainly going to affect next year.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
So the problem with that is, just to bring up a little off-season talk here, I believe that Charles Omenihu was a little bit of the backup plan if for some reason you can't get a deal done with Chris Jones and you have to end up trading him. Which, let's be clear, he's scheduled to be a free agent, but everyone is expecting them to tag him again uh, and try to work an extension out. And if you can't, trade him to wherever he wants to go to do right by the player. So I think Amenahue was kind of the backup to that because he plays both inside and out. And I think the plan was, okay, Charles Amenahue is built in a similar way to Chris Jones. You're never going to replace Chris Jones. That's not going to happen. But Charles Amenahue is 6'6", like Chris Jones is. He's a good inside pass rusher. And I think the plan was to, okay, kick him inside, take FAU, who is our first round edge player that we drafted this year, kick him outside, and then maybe you don't have to retool the whole defense because Chris Jones leaves.
Yeah.
With Amenahue getting the knee injury, the ACL, that whole plan gets blown up, and now it becomes even more important to figure out a way to keep your generational defensive tackle in Chris Jones.
I don't know if they franchise tag him. I was just looking it up. His franchise tag number next year is $32 million.
It actually would be north of 33.
Yeah. So
You can
I don't.
you can get to 60 million in cap space pretty easy for them.
Oh,
We
can
can
they?
talk. Yeah, you can talk. We can
Yeah.
talk
Okay.
about all this in the off season. But yeah, if it, we, I, my plan for the off season when we get there is to kind of go one or two teams an episode and really just tear down their whole off season and kind of plan it as if you and I were in the front office making the decisions for that team.
No, that's what I was thinking too. That we can definitely do in this off season, leading up to the draft, and of course, hit other sports news as well and things
For
of that
sure.
effect with it.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Which, hey, LeBron James, I don't know if you saw this. He was getting on the Lakers. He was getting on the Lakers. He was upset.
Got blown out by the Rockets the other day.
Yeah.
Got a little punked by Dylan. I don't want to say punked by Dylan Brooks, but he didn't do anything to set Dylan Brooks straight. I'll say that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, at this point, can you even talk about that kind of stuff, though, with LeBron? I mean, what is he in his 22nd or third year, something like that?
Yeah, but there's just a point where you're just not going to let a player just punch you in the face,
Yeah.
and you're just going to
Yeah.
kind of walk away from that and not. There's just a time where you just got to let a player know, like, no, you're not doing this to me. You might, granted how the game goes, you're not doing this to me.
I don't feel like the Lakers roster, like I've said before, I'm a Lakers fan. Um, I feel like maybe the whole reason why I don't watch the Lakers as much as I should is I feel like they're missing that toughness. They're missing that enforcer that they've always had. On all the great Lakers teams, they had a guy that would get after somebody that didn't care, and he would
Yeah,
go after him, and he would be that guy to like, that ain't happening. They don't have that.
they almost seem passive aggressive in a lot
Yeah.
of the stuff that they do. That's kind of how to me, that's how I would explain the Lakers. Is they almost seem passive aggressive
Yeah.
with the way they play. Maybe they're waiting till the playoffs. Who knows? But it's just
I'm so tired of that.
they got to make the playoffs this year. It's going to be a struggle for them. It's going to be the West is loaded this year.
I know the West is loaded. I understand that, but the West has always been loaded. The West was loaded when Kobe and Shaq were doing their thing.
Yeah, that's
Um,
true.
like, it's not an excuse to me that the West is loaded. Like, get over it, man. You want to be the greatest of all time? Show me, because you're not.
Mhm. To me, the biggest disappointment on the Lakers is Anthony Davis. I hate to say it. For as talented as he is, that guy should be doing more consistently great things. And I think some of it is I think LeBron expected him to just start stepping up and make it his team, and Anthony Davis hasn't done it. And LeBron is approaching 40. I think he's kind of like, man, I can still play, but
Yeah.
this should be you stepping up at this point.
Yep. Yep. And I love Anthony Davis. He's one of my favorite players. I love him in theory, though. I think, you know what I mean? If
Yeah.
that makes any sense. I love him in theory. I love him when I'm playing 2K and I'm controlling him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think sometimes he just you can't take away what he does because he does some great things. I mean, what's he? I think he's averaging a double double right now. Uh,
Yeah.
but but I think there's that yes, the leadership and the grit and the toughness. But I think that's also gone from the game, man. Like Embiid has it.
He has it, but the NBA has kind of outlawed the toughness and gone away with it.
Yeah.
With if you foul someone and then they flail around, okay, let's review it and see if you're going to get kicked out the game. Um, Respect to Draymond. Just as Draymond pushed the edge, I didn't believe in Draymond's suspension the way they suspended him indefinitely. Suspension for him when he was suspended. I thought it should have just been a number that they gave him. Um, but
Yo. Uh, hey man, I don't have all the fancy schooling you have. Is that the lesser than or the
yeah,
greater?
basketball is less than football, is what that is.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't have, dude. I don't know what it is, but I just can't get that damn lesser than greater than sign. We taught that back in what, like kindergarten. I can't get it.
I was always taught the alligator eats the bigger side with his
Right.
mouth
Okay.
open.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Makes sense. Yeah. I always mix that. I always mix that crap up too. Like,
yeah.
yeah, man, I get it. Basketball. We're just trying to. It's supposed to be sports talk, so trying to mix it up a little bit. With football, all the football stuff going on, man, it's hard to pull away, and we're both football guys, so it's hard to pull away even for a minute to talk about the rest of the sports world. Definitely be time as football slows down.
I'm football
Yeah,
only.
I know who it is, man. I know who it is. So this is my buddy. He's actually this is my buddy James. He's actually my YouTube mentor, man. He runs a very successful YouTube program,
Awesome.
channel, and has a bunch of subscribers and all that kind of stuff. So he kind of helps me set straight when I'm doing stupid stuff on here. I'm now on my third channel, so hopefully I've learned my lessons. But yeah, and you're helping me with that for sure.
Oh,
I've had a
you're
great
helping me
time.
out with this. No, I've had it. This has been fun. It's been great. Hey, I don't know. I know you're not in the WWE and all that type of stuff yet. Pat McAfee is back to announcing Raw on TV again.
Nice, nice.
Yeah, he's
I
back to
didn't know
being
he
a
quit,
WWE Raw
honestly,
announcer. Yeah,
but
he was SmackDown, and then when he signed the contract to do College Game Day, it filled his contract and his schedule too much and everything else to that effect with it. And I just
gotcha.
happened to turn Raw on last night, and I was like, "Is that McAfee?" And it sure
I,
was, and he's back to announcing WWE Raw on Monday nights.
I love McAfee, dude. That guy's so talented.
He is.
You know, he was doing a stand up circuit for a while before he got into all this other stuff.
Yeah, I did hear that. I heard he was doing stand up. I haven't seen any of it or anything to that effect with it, but I know he did do stand up. I've heard him mention it on his show and everything else to that effect with it.
He's wrestled in the WWE
Three
and won,
times. Well, actually, more than that.
and he won at least one of those, right?
He's won every single one. He did get pinned by Vince McMahon when they wrestled at WrestleMania. Long story on that and everything else. I don't know if you've seen any highlights from that, but that's a great, great highlight and everything. He was actually in the Royal Rumble this year. The Royal Rumble just happened this week, and he was in the Royal Rumble this year.
No kidding.
He was doing commentary, and his number gets called, and they play his music. So he gets up from the table, starts walking into the ring, goes into the ring, and he sees a 7'4" Omos and a Braun Breaker, who is actually the son of one of the Steiner brothers. I can't remember exactly which one. They're in the
The
ring looking at each other.
Steiners, yes.
Yes. And so Pat McAfee looks at him, goes in the ring, walks back out of the ring, and then goes back in, and then jumps himself over the top rope and eliminates himself.
That's good stuff, man.
Yeah.
And you know, McAfee's a huge wrestling fan, so this has to be Like, dude, is he not living his absolute best freaking life?
Oh, he says it all the time, man. That's the thing I love about McAfee is it just seems like he's just out there with his buddies, just having fun, and
Yeah,
that's what I love with it. And I feel like that's what we're pretty much doing is we're having fun, just talking and everything else,
yeah,
um, and just having a good time with it. But that was the thing. I had never watched the McAfee show. I heard of it. I had never watched it. Watched it. I watched SmackDown one night. He was announcing, and his passion and his energy made me watch his YouTube show when he was
yeah.
fully on YouTube. That's what actually got me into McAfee was his passion and his energy and the excitement that he brought. And I was like, all right, let me check this guy out. And then I just fell in love with him ever since then, as far as watching his show and everything. It's just
Yeah,
great.
man. I'm so happy for him and his family. I mean, if you really think about it, dude, you go from being just a regular kid from Pittsburgh and then you end up kicking and punting for West Virginia, getting a college education out of the deal, going and drinking and
Mhm.
partying. Then you make it to the NFL at the Senior Bowl, by the way, which is going on this week, which we didn't talk about at all.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, the Senior Bowl, he makes an impression there. He didn't get invited to the combine or anything. Punters don't normally get invited to that. And then gets drafted, has a great career with the Colts, plays with guys like Peyton Manning. I mean, Andrew Luck. You played with two great quarterbacks. You're around all these
Yes.
awesome Hall of Fame players. You go to a Super Bowl. I think he didn't win the Super Bowl he went to. I
No.
don't think.
Went to the Super Bowl his rookie year. His rookie year was the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
That was the year the Colts lost to the Saints. Yep.
yeah, that's right. And then, I mean, you're arguably. I mean, we haven't seen it yet, but I think he has an argument for Hall of Fame. To be completely honest, as a punter, very successful punter.
He was a great punter. I wouldn't put him in the Hall of Fame, but he was a fun punter to watch if you watch his antics and everything else. I wouldn't put him in the Hall of Fame or nothing like that, but
So if you don't put him in the Hall of Fame as a punter, is it not possible for him to make Hall of Fame as a broadcaster and just as a football person, as a personality?
yeah, contributor to the game. I
Yeah,
could see putting him in that eventually.
yeah.
With that,
So
yeah,
and
that
then
that I could definitely see.
you go out and you're doing stand up and doing whatever, and then you start this YouTube channel, and then you're wrestling, which was your dream as a kid to be in W. I mean, and now he
Yeah,
has, of course, his baby daughter. I mean, you've really lived an awesome life, man. So
well,
congratulations to him.
yeah. Congratulations to him, and like I said, he's really got my energy going for us to do this and everything else, and just
Yeah.
love listening to the guy, watching the guy. Got my wife into watching him. She loves watching him now, even. So
He always said like Mac it was electric. Right? It was
yeah,
electric. So yeah, man, it is electric, and it is like the energy, and like you talked about with the guys just kind of doing their own thing. My dog wanted to come see me. He's sitting beside me.
oh,
That's what I'm doing down here. Um,
you're all good.
yeah, man. Like you just watch it, and you're like, dude, that's the that's the dream, man. If you can, obviously he has advantages because he was obviously already famous and all that. So you can start a YouTube channel a little easier when you're already famous.
Yeah, it helps.
But yeah, man, it's definitely motivating because I could just see myself just talking with me and my buddies about sports and like, can you imagine being in that position where you're getting to make moves because your YouTube channel takes off? I mean, that would be
Oh,
amazing.
be amazing
Yeah.
with that. Since you brought that up, make sure everyone, if you're listening or you pick this chat up, or pick up our broadcast, make sure you subscribe, like, share it, get other people involved with it. Love to chat with you guys live when you're putting in messages and everything else with that. So make sure you're doing all those things
Yeah.
to help us out, please.
Yeah, and I know the streams aren't always at the most convenient time. We're trying to get that figured out. We're gonna start streaming in at least one evening time a week and try to make it consistent once
Yes.
we get that all figured out. But this weekend, as you already alluded to, we're looking at probably doing a game plan session for both games, or excuse me, both games. Sorry, the Super Bowl, both teams
Yes. Both
in the
teams.
Super Bowl. Do a game plan session and kind of break stuff down, almost just like we would for a regular game. and just kind of look at a little bit of film. We'll try to have some all 22 up and talk some ball, and hopefully people enjoy that kind of coach talk and kind of see what goes into it at any level of football, and what people are looking at and what they're thinking about when they go into that game plan mode.
No, most definitely. Um, Before we wrap up, because I know we're getting to that time about ready to wrap up, do you want to drop any, especially with you being a Chiefs fan, any thoughts on Kadarius Toney with his comments?
I knew you were going there. Knew you were going there. I honestly think I. All right, I'm gonna talk from a father's perspective for a minute. Like, I really hope that young man finds a mentor and finds somebody to bring him in and to help him maximize his God gifted ability, because the guy
Mhm.
has talent. The guy has talent, and he can be very successful in this league. I've spent all year defending his ass, even though he really probably doesn't deserve it. And it's because I see his potential, and that's a big flaw of mine. I love people, and I always see people's potential, and I always want them to reach their potential. But with his big rant about the Chiefs lying about his injuries and all that stuff, let's cover that real quick. So number one, if they are lying about your injury, it's only to help you, because it looks a hell of a lot better for you to be an injury scratch than it does for you to be a healthy scratch. If you're a healthy scratch on an Andy Reid football team, that signals to the entire league that Andy Reid is done with you, and you can no longer offer anything to his team. And Andy doesn't give up on anybody. Andy doesn't give up on anybody. So I think if they did fudge the numbers a little bit there on the injury report, it was just to make you look better, man. It was just to make you look like, oh well, he's fighting this injury bug thing again. Somebody would have took a shot on him again after, oh well, he's fighting injuries. Maybe he'll get healthy for us. But when you go out and you do this freaking rant on Instagram and all this, like I told you this morning, I would have cut him Monday morning. I would have
Yeah.
cut him Monday morning. That's where I would have been. So Andy, once again, is a little bit more lenient, a little bit more understanding, and a little bit less of a disciplinarian than I would have been in this situation. And good luck to him, man. I think he's done with the Chiefs. That was a dumb move. On the day of the AFC Championship game, you're going to get on Instagram Live and do that.
Yeah, I didn't get that standpoint of it either. I could get him saying that stuff after the season was over.
Yeah,
Or if someone approached him, said, "Hey, what injury did you have, or why weren't you playing, or something to that effect with it," I could see him going on his rant then. Um, Timing of it's not right, not good, or anything like that. I heard the Chiefs make a statement saying that he might be active for the Super Bowl, but I don't know how accurate, or if they were just saying that to deflect the attention at that moment, or anything to that effect with it.
two more things that I actually want to hear your conversation about is like, number one, they listed it as a personal issue plus injuries, which means you're a little banged up, but you also, oh, by the way, just had your first kid. Like, can you? I mean, if I'm not going to use you as a coach, and we all know that, and we all know that you're banged up, and you just had your kid, and I say, hey, man, go be with your family, is that such a bad thing?
I'll be honest, if I'm a player, I'd be like, I'm here to play for the team. It's like I'll have time to spend with my kid in the off season and everything else. That would just be me as a competitive player. I'd want to be out there on the field. I don't want I wouldn't want you as a coach or even if as a boss saying, "Hey, take time off right now. We don't need you or want you here, so just go spend time with your kid." That's just how I would be with it if that was the scenario that I'm at with Kadarius Toney. So
I get
that's
that.
how I would feel with it. Yeah. Um,
I get
especially being in the NFL or being as an athlete, I'd be like, who are you to tell me you want me here all the other times, no matter what? Now you're going to tell me, hey, go spend time with your kid. That's just how I would feel with it if I was Kadarius Toney with that. If you're going to
yeah,
say that's the reason why. If he's injured, he's injured. If he had a lingering injury and they were just like, we just want you perfect before we put you back on the field, I get that. They could just say that with it.
yeah.
Um, but not being in the room and not knowing what they got going on, like I said, I just thought it was a bad look for him the day that they're going to the AFC Championship game for him to actually come out and make that statement and rant and do all that stuff. Not a good look not a good look for him.
Well, and one last thing on this before we kind of close it down. Um, don't you, if you're Kadarius Toney, think that that's something that you can address with teams in private later on when somebody asks, "Hey, why'd you miss those 7 games?" You say, "Well, I think they didn't really want me around anymore, and they kept putting me on the injury report. I was fine."
No, I definitely think so, but I think his lack of control is why the team like the Giants went ahead and got rid of him.
Yeah.
That's probably why the Chiefs and Andy Reid are at a point. I mean, he hasn't been seen since he dropped that pass against the Patriots. Am I correct against that about that? And
Yep.
it could be a Patrick Mahomes thing where he's like, I don't want this guy on the field. Like, I'm not going to throw him the ball, so don't put him out on the field.
We've seen great quarterbacks do that.
Yeah.
We've seen Tom Brady do that. We've seen Peyton Manning do that. We've seen all the great quarterbacks.
Yeah.
And Pat McAfee, actually, now that we were talking about McAfee, he told a great story about Manning and I think a rookie, maybe I could be wrong, but it might have been Stokely. And he's like, "Get the F off the field now."
Yeah.
Right?
And the coaches were going to put him back on. And whatever. Go ahead. But yeah.
Yeah. Get the F off the field. So you're right, man. That was something that maybe I don't know, I hadn't thought of or didn't want to bring up, or I don't know. It's very possible that Mahomes was like, "No, man, like, nope, you need to get your stuff right."
Yeah, I believe it's possibly more of that than anything else.
Yeah, and if your quarterback doesn't trust a guy, then there's really not much of a reason to have him out there because now you're just wasting a body.
Yep. And to be honest, he basically cost the Chiefs 2 games, just to be perfectly honest. His dropped against Detroit where he got intercepted, returned for a touchdown, and then the game against the Bills. He's technically cost them 2 games just by his antics or actions for the way he played.
My question is then, like, why did they stick? Why did Mahomes keep his faith in Valdez-Scantling and lose his faith in Toney? Because MVS lost us 2 games as well, at least.
But it's one thing for a person to keep dropping passes where they're getting intercepted, and because it's going to reflect on Mahomes. No one's going to say. People say it, but it's more of Mahomes threw 2 interceptions this game. Granted, they flew off the receiver's hands or something like that.
Yeah.
But Valdez-Scantling, and this is what I think was brilliant about Mahomes. I've heard a few people mention it, was the drop against the Eagles that MVS had. Mahomes said, maybe I should have took a little bit off that pass.
Yeah.
Against that. So what does he do when he throws that pass against Baltimore? It is a soft lob, and he's making sure Valdez-Scantling has no issues catching the ball on that pass play. So I just think that's brilliant.
That one against the Eagles, you're right. You're right. You're right. And that's a leader taking ownership and all that kind of good stuff. I mean, that's the way you lead. But let's be real, man. If you go and watch that, and we talked about this weeks ago when that game happened in the coaching chat, and one of our coaches had said that was not a good pass and all that. But when you go back and you look at the picture, like, it was right through MVS's hands. It couldn't have been any more perfect. But Mahomes,
I think they said it was a tough catch. It wasn't necessarily a bad pass. They said it was a tougher catch than people. It was a tough catch, but you're a pro receiver. That's a catch you make.
Yeah. Yeah, especially if you're MVS, you're supposed to be the downfield guy. Then over the shoulder catch is supposed to be your thing, right? Yep. Not everybody can do those over the shoulder catches. That is true. But if your whole thing is taking the top off the defense, I'm sorry, those over the shoulder catches are your speciality, sir.
Just saying. But I just thought it was brilliant how that came full circle, though, where Mahomes was like, maybe I should have took something off, and then he goes back to MVS, and it's a nice little lob that he throws to MVS. That he tried to drop. He tried to drop it.
He tried his best to drop that thing. God bless him, man. I'm happy for him, though. And I think all the Chiefs fans probably feel similar. I'm happy that, it's probably still his last game coming up as a Chief. We saved $12 million by cutting him. So
Yeah.
it's just, and it's, I think the dead money on him is only like 2 million. So probably your last game as a Chief here in the Super Bowl. But I think everybody feels good for him. That nobody wants. They're all people, right? They're all humans,
Yeah.
like we talked about earlier. So you don't want to go out feeling negative or anything like that. I'm glad he had a big ending, and honestly, he's become a staple of playoff performance over the last 2 years. Last year, he was big in the playoffs as well. So
He might earn
but,
himself another contract, to be honest, with someone else.
yeah, somebody will take a chance on him. I don't think he's going to get the money that he got from us. I think that's passed him up because he's at the back end of his prime, and I think nobody's going to really truly forget the drops. But I think he did earn himself another shot, so that's good
Yes.
for him.
He'll land somewhere either way,
Yeah.
whether the Chiefs restructure or however, he'll land somewhere.
I'd be okay, probably. Well, no, I wouldn't. I'm just gonna be honest. I'm not okay. We could talk about that some other day. I have
Yeah.
a whole plan for that wide receiver room, but yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah. So, anything else you want to cover before we call it a day?
No, I think we're good, man. I believe we're good. Been at an hour and a half today. Good
Yeah,
talking to you. Thanks for everyone that chimed in and anyone else that's listening. Thank you for allowing us to do this.
yeah,
Definitely
definitely,
appreciate it.
definitely. Love doing it. I can't wait till we can get maybe a primetime stream going and get some more people involved again because that makes it even more fun and makes it more of a conversation. But
Yes.
a great time. I look forward to the next one. Thank you so much for doing this with me. I appreciate it. Thank you to all our people and our viewers. We hope we brought you some value. And if we did, please subscribe.
Yes. Please subscribe. Thank you.
All right. Thank you guys. Bye.